So.
But now, if we could shift gears just a bit, we're going to talk about, I believe, Nick.
Wait, you're not spoiling me again. You're not.
I'm trying to set you up. I'm trying to put a softball on a tee for you. We're about to talk about a band that really doesn't have any misfires. That doesn't have, in my opinion, has no missteps.
Wow.
So
really?
Take it away, Nick.
That's a bold lead-in. I disagree with that premise. Let's listen to a song.
Yes.
Okay.
Why don't you play the clip I selected from the opening track?
Yes!
Okay.
Yes!
Okay. Okay. So
thank you. This has been
everything
Review the Review. No.
Everything
you.
we
This has
just
been. You
said.
should check it out.
Shut up.
Good night.
Everything we just said about the 80s. We have to throw that away right now.
Yeah.
We have to throw that entire premise away.
Forget everything I
and
just said.
evaluate. We have to evaluate this album on its own merits for its own songwriting. Jay, I'm excited to see that you're going to have no problem doing that.
I'm bursting at the seams. I'm bursting.
So would we like to talk about this first, and then, because we're also going to do a little bit of, we're also going to visit what some other people have had to say about, what some other person has had to say about this, and then have a conversation about that, if that's okay. So,
well, let's. What's the album that we're talking about? What's the band?
The album that we're talking about is by the band The Killers, and it's called Imploding the Mirage. And this jam just dropped on this past week, I think.
That's right.
Greg.
Yo.
What did you think of this album?
I mean, the Killers are great at what they do. It's they make the anthems. The
anthems.
I have to admit, they've never been like a favorite of mine, but I do appreciate them. I just don't sit around listening to the Killers. I just don't do it.
Fair.
I was sitting down Saturday, and I put this album on because I saw that it came out. And actually, Greg, I think you had mentioned that the Killers was going to be having an album coming out this year, and I was like, oh, okay, well then I'll.
That doesn't
I don't know
sound
why.
like
I think
something
it
I
might
would
have been. It was it had to do with you knowing somebody in the band or something like that. I don't know, or somebody.
That sounds like something Greg would say.
You know what?
Yeah.
You know what it was? Wasn't it like a Rolling Stone thing that was like artists that are coming out that maybe an article that you'd brought in, Nick?
I think that might be it.
Anyway,
I know they've come up. So I pulled it up, and that's the first track, and and my first thought was, okay, if Jay doesn't like this, then that means he hates the 80s more than he loves Bruce Springsteen.
Yes.
So Jay, I'm glad to see.
He hates the 80s more than he loves Bruce Springsteen.
That's good. That's good.
Wow. Okay.
That first track.
Thankfully, you don't have to worry about it because I love it.
Well, I know. I know. I'm very excited. I'm so excited to hear that you enjoyed it because actually this whole album is more of that. Right? It is just it just
gets more. It just gets more.
Builds and builds, and you're just like, geez, oh Pete, it's a Saturday afternoon.
It's a lot.
It was
no, it is very good though. This record sounds great, and I mean, I'm listening to it and I'm trying to figure out like what's like some of the production tricks, because you just hear like these like there's a thing that they do, and maybe we'll hear it in a different clip, but there's like amidst the wash of synths and cool like textures, there'll be like these jangly acoustic guitars that come in for like half a measure and then disappear. And so I'm just listening to things like that and the cool little ear candy. But Brandon Flowers is a fantastic singer and frontman. Like, I would definitely go see if somebody handed me tickets to see the Killers, I would definitely go. So I will say that. I don't dislike the band. It's just I'm almost tried. And there's certain songs of theirs that are definite bangers. Mr. Brightside is like a classic.
Well, this. I'm gonna save the other thoughts that I have about it.
Well,
I think for post-review review.
I think it feeds very well into what we're about to talk. What we're about to do. Is that right? Is that fair?
Yeah.
What are we doing?
It does.
What are we doing?
Yeah.
I'm gonna read you a sentence.
Okay.
To understand how far queer culture has come in public acceptance, look no further than the immaculately coiffed straight Las Vegas Mormon, striving to live down every one of those adjectives. Can you play the theme song?
Oh, it's so long overdue. A straight review the review.
Straight up.
Wow. Straight up.
Straight, not gay.
Now, Nick, I want you to set this up, because once you get the ball rolling,
I know.
I just have so much. I have so much to say on this topic.
I understand that you're gonna need to get it in there, and I'm gonna need to let you talk. So, okay, it occurred to me that whomever assigns a score is definitely not the person that writes the review, right? I'm sure they weigh into it, but there must be like a group that assembles the score, because this review maybe paid lip service to the score that they gave it, but not really, I think. So
and we're talking about the Pitchfork review.
So this is the Pitchfork review of Imploding the Mirage. Pitchfork, in a unique scenario, gave them higher than a 5 point something and gave them a 7.4 for this album. And the byline, which is, I mean, for Pitchfork, that's glowing. The byline is, led by the exquisite brio of Brandon Flowers, the Las Vegas band returns with one of their biggest and best albums, a marvelously absurd collection of synth rock gems and arena anthems. Byline, I'm also pretty sure, was not written by the same person that wrote the review.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah.
Jay, how did you like this review?
Well, I
can tell you agreed with it because you clapped at the beginning. So
I did. I don't really have any problems with the technical nature of the review, because they were, for the first time in Pitchfork's history, they were actually somewhat non-sarcastic and actually somewhat positive about a Killers album. Mm-hmm. So they got some snarky digs in, as Pitchfork does. And it's it's fun. It's a funny review because they're making fun of an album because it's so bombastic. But meanwhile, the review includes paragraphs like this. But here's the difference. Rather than record treacly updates of, quote, "the search is over," unquote, his mission is to find the Neil Tennant in Survivor. As much a quixotic mission as a genuine what-the-fuck moment. A cishet performer who queers anonymous Wembley Stadium tub-thumping with bizarre word combinations.
Speaking of bizarre word combinations,
I read that paragraph 5 times before I got anything from it.
It's grammatically correct. I was able to determine that.
That's that. I mean, for anyone to include a paragraph like that, or the one that Nick read, in an album where they're also criticizing the album for being too bombastic, is just, I mean, they have to be in on the joke, right?
Greg, did you get a chance to read this?
I did. I tried.
You tried?
Okay.
I did. Yeah, I tried. I got stuck right away when he says, Flowers has telegraphed a primal longing. Why didn't God make him a gay musician? At first, I was like, what?
Yeah, it did strike me that this had nothing to do with the album, and yes. a lot of it, right?
Yeah, and I'm just like, what? Like, why are you talking about this? You think that he thinks he should. You think that he wants to be gay, but isn't. Right. Right. What does that have to do with anything? You know, and
there's a lot of projecting. There's a lot of projecting going on.
It's projecting. I also think he's saying this guy just wants to be Freddie Mercury. I think is what he's saying.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, possibly. And I don't want to.
I mean, like as far as like an arena rock god, if you will, that just transcends gender and which I don't know. I've read it. I listened to the Killers. I'm not as big a fan, Jay, as you are. But I don't know. Yeah.
Let me get into this.
Back up the train.
The more I thought about this review in particular, it led me back to reviews of their second album, the Killers' second album, Sam's Town, which came out in 2005, I believe. Maybe 2006. And I wasn't a huge fan of the Killers' first album, Hot Fuss. I wasn't a huge fan. I like the singles.
I love that album.
It's good. It's good. It just didn't really ring any bells for me.
Somebody told me. Nick, you do a good impression of that. Somebody told me.
I don't know what that
look like a girlfriend.
Girlfriend. Yeah. The British album. Right. It's his British album.
The British album. That's right.
Boyfriend. Girlfriend.
But the more I thought about it, and the more I kept going back to that time period in my mind, the 2006 Sam's Town, it really solidified that that's really where I made the divergence, where I started really kind of seeing Pitchfork for what it was.
Oh boy.
For seeing Pitchfork for the hipsters that they were and for the hypocrites that they are. Because, and I will also preface this as saying, not everybody's going to have the same taste as me. I get it. I understand that. My problem is when you denigrate an album or a band for, I don't know, not living up to the stereotypes that you think that they should live up to. Okay. Which is what it felt like back then. And with okay, so the Killers, they're not my favorite band. I literally, like, they're a lot of fun. I put them in the same class as, like, The Darkness.
Yeah.
Which is like a really
Darkness, yeah.
Okay. They're in that same kind of category for me. They're a lot of fun. I like that they're a band that's out now that's doing the kind of music that I like. I like that they don't take themselves too seriously. I like that they are over the top, because I think that's what rock and roll should be, you know? When I listen to the album Sam's Town, which is just a lot of fun, it's a fun record, and it has a lot of great anthemic driving rock songs, and you compare that to the reviews that album got, not just from Pitchfork, but from across the musical spectrum. I mean, people were calling them, like, this is the worst record that's ever been recorded. This is, like, trash. This is... I pulled some paragraphs from the Sam's Town review, which got a 5.9, whatever, from Pitchfork.
Okay.
So this is from the Pitchfork review. Over and over again, the Killers get the medium mostly right. You know, like the sledgehammer chords of This River is Wild, the canned string crescendos of the title track, but whiff on the message, too often resorting to cliff note Americana like Highways and Rivers or cartoonish character studies like the protagonist of Uncle Johnny. The easy target for these near misses is the made-over Brandon Flowers, though the Killer's new image means that he's faced with the difficult task of shifting abruptly from his Robert Smith nasal whine to Springsteenish bellow. For instance, quiet moments like the bridge of When You Were Young or the outro to This River is Wild reveal the heretofore unknown fact that aiming for Springsteen and missing even slightly results in meatloaf. Not that Flowers' bandmates help out any.
Pitchfork.
As a key element of the arena rock epic, awesome fucking fist-pumping backing vocals are bungled at every opportunity, from the awkward I See London, I See Sam's Town of the opening track to the faux Queen multi-tracking is hard, what if we all just sing in unison of the song Bones. So it's like, when I read that, it did not jive at all with the album. Like, you guys aren't getting the album. You guys are trying to be too cool for this album, or vice versa, the album isn't cool enough for you. And that's when I was just like, you know what? Enough. This is bullshit. Yeah. It's effing bullshit. You don't have to think the album is a grand artistic statement, but it's not as bad as these people are saying. And that's really when I just turned off from all that stuff. And it really, I mean, I guess maybe shame on me for not realizing that sooner in my life. But just like, you guys don't know what you're talking about. Or at least you're not speaking the same language or looking for the same things in music that I am.
No, and they've never made a record. Yeah. Right. I mean, I don't know that for sure, but they're writers. They're obviously, you know, like they don't know what goes into it and like the risks that you have to take.
It's such a fucking image thing. with them because they don't. The Killers aren't cool or like they're not hip like Beck. Like Beck can make an album like Midnight Vultures, and what's ironic is that there's an ad for a Pitchfork video that they did on Beck's Midnight Vultures. His '99 album. That's like '80s schlock. That if they reviewed that album,
man, that album's brilliant.
It's good.
It is.
It's a lot better than all the Killers albums.
If they reviewed the Killer album in the same vein that they reviewed the Beck album, that is that they're having fun and having a good time and not trying to like compare it to Springsteen's Born to Run,
right?
Then they would have a different attitude, in my opinion.
It seems like they hit on something early on. Well, Greg, what are your thoughts? I'm sorry.
My thoughts on you got something to say, Nick? Go for it.
Well, the only thing you revisiting that one is, and I think they're hitting on something that I couldn't put my finger on when I was listening to the album on Saturday. I've listened to it 3 or 4 times now because I got the kids and Trish into it because it's just fun.
It's fun.
Yeah, totally. Which is like, who the hell is this guy? Like not in a like who the hell do you think? Not in like a who the hell do you think you are, but like, what does Brandon Flowers sound like? Because I know what Brandon Flowers doing British rock sounds like. I know what Brandon Flowers doing. Actually, let's play another clip because this is Brandon Flowers doing the Talking Heads. If you could play Fire and Bone, that clip from there. This is later on in the same album. Yeah, go ahead.
It's like some like Crowded House and all kinds of.
It's just waiting for a montage sequence to go along with it.
Yeah, it's funny. I just watched some.
Go ahead.
Sorry, Jay. Go ahead. I was just watching the movie Footloose. I've never seen it before. And I think it's because that Jeremy and Footloose mashup. Anyway.
Yeah.
which has been in my effing head all week since our last episode.
That's why I watched Footloose.
Yeah, he just finally just did it.
I saw it was on Amazon Prime. I was like, I'd never seen this. Let's give it a shot.
So that song was that in that movie pretty much?
I'm saying
like
these,
Kenny Loggins version.
This music is just kind of like it's all part of that same world. It's so funny how this whole episode's like turning into 80s.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
I know.
Except for the Deftones.
No, well, yeah.
That's okay. That's a much needed reprieve right there.
Although their 80s period was pretty terrible.
Oh, really?
No, I'm just kidding.
They started. I was going to say, these guys have been around forever. I knew they were around in the 90s, but good lord.
Even Ramon is like, nah.
Nah.
No, but
don't bring it up.
Like Nick, I think that's, I don't know. I might be hypocritical.
I don't even know what's a problem.
I think that's a fair criticism.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's a fair thing to bring up. Like, find your own voice, Brandon Flowers. And I'm with you on that. I'm interested in him exploring that a little bit more rather than being so derivative. If you could say that sounds like a criticism to me.
Yeah. And maybe what you were, and again, Pitchfork doesn't need to be reinterpreted to be valid. Like, the review is just jumbled, like it's a jumbled thesis that was only ever half formed, and he never like gets around to explaining why that was even brought up. Like, he's just poking. It's just every paragraph's a different poke. Yeah. Like, the first paragraph, he's like, Brandon Flowers wants to be gay. Second paragraph, the Killers are too ambitious and trying to make epic rock arena albums. That's all they do. Also, it's good.
It's
yeah. It's just like, what is this? I think the guy's under some stress that wrote it. But see, this is what I do. I'm going to psychoanalyze the guy that wrote this. So I understand Pitchfork. Because that's how I think, too. Review the review.
That's why we're here.
Alfred, I think you need some walks, buddy. Go outside.
Yeah. There was a much better review of this album, or at least an article about the Killers and Brandon Flowers in The Independent.
Oh, okay.
If you want to look into that, but it actually talks about the process and what how this record was made, and
that would have been helpful.
Well, like for instance, there's some of the members have quit, right?
Right, that would have been helpful.
Like that affects the fact that there's it's a different lineup.
Sounds changed a little bit, yeah.
And also when I've heard that, especially that first track, I was thinking, oh, this is like War on Drugs, which is also like a Springsteen kind of. I don't know if you guys are familiar with them, but apparently the guy from War on Drugs like came in to work on this album with them a little bit.
Oh, wow.
So I'm like, oh, there you go. Okay. And some other people, some like Foxygen,
Katie Lang. She's
oh, is she? Yeah,
sings,
right.
Yeah.
There it is.
She does the duet.
Perfect. Yeah, I mean, hey, look, man, it's definitely. I want to listen to it again. I want to listen to this record some more. This other article actually brings up how he was sort of searching. Brandon Flowers was searching for that fire, and then he heard the newest Vampire Weekend album, and it like reignited his competitive
that actually makes
flames.
Sense too.
That they say he once got from the Strokes' first album. Is this it?
Okay.
So
that makes sense.
It's cool. It's funny. I was actually just talking with some musicians at this rehearsal, socially distanced, safe rehearsal, about how like there's not as much like a rivalry as as there used to be, maybe.
Oh, okay.
Which I don't even know is true because
amongst artists in the scene that you're in right now, or like
not even
amongst
like
bands,
just whatever in various scenes, just like in music. I feel like back in the olden days there was definitely maybe more competition, maybe just like fewer slots to. And nowadays you can, everyone can be heard.
Yeah.
Find your audience and ignore the haters.
I caught this quote, and I don't want to go too far with it, but in this independent review of the Killer's new album, and I thought that was interesting because you see these guys a squeaky clean image, but it's cool to know that like actually like it's coming from like, well, I can do that better, kind of.
You're right. Right.
Yeah. And it's interesting that like it took finding an album to give him the inspiration, because that right there, that just single sentence tells me more than the entire Pitchfork review about how this guy actually like thinks in his process. Like he needs to be inspired, and that would explain some of why it might sound a bit derivative, because that's where he gained the inspiration from. And there's a whole, that's like a lot of artists are like that. Like,
yeah,
I heard this. I mean, honestly, Tom York thinks he's the most derivative artist that's ever existed, because he's like, all we did on this album was rip off Bjork, and all we did on this album was rip off these guys and these. Right. You know what I mean? Like, I disagree, but
well, yeah. If it hits your ears and you're just like, no, but that's you. That don't you see that? And it's not Bjork, but like you're getting the end of the. The information has now gone through the Tom York filter, and you're hearing,
and the whole band, right? The whole band comes back through that, and I feel like maybe that does have something to do with it. Maybe a lot of it's resting on his shoulders, and
right.
and it's not getting filtered back through like the other band members and having their flourishes added to it. Because it just, the thing that as I was listening to it, even this evening when I listened to it again, like when we were eating dinner, you're just transported to some other band that it reminds you of, which I don't dislike, and I don't even know if it's a problem. And that was kind of my question to you guys, is like, they're not covers, there's not going to be any, well, who knows if there's going to be any lawsuits about copyright about it, but like they're not ripping off anybody's songs, but holy crap, it's derivative. Is that a problem?
To me, no.
Like, what is that?
If it's wholly original, I mean, that's what music is. I mean, you can't.
Sure.
There's no new ideas under the sun, and to me, yeah, you can hear the influences, but it's not. They're not ripping off somebody in particular. They have a sound that they want to go for on a particular track. That's the same thing that Bob Dylan does on his. On his band members are very vocal about saying this, like. He'll take an old song and he's like, oh yeah, but I want to do it like this old Johnny Rivers song this time. Just give them the track. So
the influences are just more obscure.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's no difference there, really.
That's true.
He's got a deeper catalog. So, yeah, I hear what you're saying, and I think they do it.
Bird clock.
It doesn't bother me. Hey, Bird Clock.
And honestly, I really like this album. I think a year ago, I would have been a dick about this album.
That's interesting. Why is that? What changed?
I think I've just... This whole pandemic thing's got me thinking a bit. I'm just kidding.
Okay.
No, obviously it's a joke. No, I think a lot of the conversations that we've been having about, like, you know, as soon as you hear it and you assign it to what you've previously labeled as something you dislike, just for the sake of it sounding a certain way, not even like the notes that are being played or like the specific timbre or like the mood or none of that. If you're just like, no, that sounds like an 80s synth, ugh.
Yeah.
And it's same with, like, you know, if I hear a twang in the voice, it's like, I gotta fight my gut to tell me, like, stop listening because you don't like country.
Yeah. So you're saying I should go back and listen to Emotional Rescue again, try to get some more meaning out of it?
Yeah.
We gave it a shot tonight, and I think another 10 years will be good.
I've heard it enough times in the last week to hold me over.
Someone's being rescued emotionally. You know.
I'll be your knight in shining armor. No, but I'm glad to hear, Nick, that our little conversations have had a beneficial effect on you.
Making me a better person. Thanks, guys.
And to you, the listeners, I hope we're doing the same thing. Let us know.
Yes.
Let us know. Give us some feedback, man.
Yes.